One of the things that you've been doing, and of course Jordan Peterson has been doing, bringing focus to the mysterious and the symbolic as a source of truth is really, really important, because there's been a sort of bifurcation that arose as a fact of the Enlightenment, that the Enlightenment was reason, and then on the other side, you had sort of romantic symbolism. And so the romantic symbolists went in the direction of pure authenticity, pure autonomy, the sort of romantic notion that, again, all meaning was to be held internally, and that you had to search in the inners of your heart to find reality, as opposed to Enlightenment, which said, okay, here's a set of facts, and then we're going to analyze those facts, and we're going to determine whether those facts are useful or true or not. What you're doing is something quite different, which is you're saying there's a set of established symbols, and these symbols predate you. They're not to be found in your heart. They're to be found outside there, and we need to explore that for deeper truths. And it is astonishing that doing some of the stuff that you do, which to sort of the layman seems abstruse, has met with this kind of sort of, I would say, success and enthusiasm.
Yeah, it is surprising. I never would have been able to plan that talking about symbolism the way I do would lead to me being able to do this for a living. It's pretty astounding. But I think that's you really hit the nail right. That is one of the problems that happened in the modern age, and it happened in Christianity, sadly, is this kind of division between meaning and fact, right? So you have, even now today, you have like the more fundamentalist, let's say, Christians that think that what's in the Bible is something that really happened. And then you have the more liberal type of theologian that say, oh, it's all kind of meaning and allegory and, metaphor. And, it's like, why can't they just be both at the same time? That is I think that's even the deepest Christian way of seeing it, that this notion of an incarnational vision, right? That the highest things and the lowest things actually come together and manifest in particulars. And so for me, the fact that in the Bible, the things that are described there are all things that happen, it's just not a problem. They just happen to not be describing them in the way that maybe you expect them to be described. They're not describing them in a way that modern historians would recognize as a threshold of whatever historicity. But who cares? Like, I'm not interested in your modern definitions. They're describing events that happen in the best way possible in order to render their meaning in a universal manner that can go on through the ages, right? So how do you describe what happened in Genesis, in the creation of the world? How do you describe the origin of the world in a way that includes meaning and purpose and morality? It's Genesis 1. It doesn't describe the Big Bang. The Big Bang is a lower form of description because it doesn't tell you how to live. Describing, this explosion that happened before time and space doesn't explain to you what it means to exist. But if you want to tell a real origin, one that has any relevance, you have to include in it the meaning order of the universe and the moral order of the universe. And that's Genesis 1. It's Genesis 1 to 3, let's say. And that's the best way to describe the origin of the world. Did it happen? Yes, it happened. Did it happen in a scientific way? No. And who cares? Why do you think that that's the highest way of describing an event? It's not.
That's especially true because, again, if you read the first 3 chapters of Genesis, there wasn't a dude named Adam. The word Adam means man. It's used all over the Bible to mean man. That's the Hebrew meaning of the word Adam, right? And Eve is only named Eve by Adam after she provides life. These names are clearly meant to imbue vast symbolism. They're not meant to. It's not like there was this guy named George and he lived in a garden where he did some gardening, and then there was this weird garden snake and he was talking like that. That's not what the story is about. And I think that because we've again reduced the world to sort of, as Bertrand Russell would say, sort of a place of fact, that we're then surprised when we lack meaning, and then when we're unable to construct our own meaning. And so what that means is that even the things that clearly are supposed to be symbolic have been turned sterile. And so you see this all over the place, the hijacking of traditional symbolism and their use for, literally sterile things. So the most obvious example would be the Olympics opening ceremony, where they're using the symbolism of Jesus and the 12 disciples to promote homosexuality and transgenderism. It's literally taking the message of Christianity and turning it into a hedonistic, sexually sterile promotion tool. It's amazing.
not just cannibalistic. There's even there's a cannibalistic because everybody knows that the myth of Dionysus has this part of it. It's called the sparagmos, which is the ripping apart of the king. Right? It's like it is this frenetic orgiastic energy that destroys the hierarchy. That's what it is. Right? It ripped the king. The women ripped the king into pieces, and this whole imagery. It's like it was perfect. This is the thing that we have to understand, Ben, is that the kind of psycho progressive, like the really fringe, the hard leftists, they understand symbolism very well. They intuitively have the right, they know what they're doing. And so the coherence of the symbolism of that scene was absolutely right. It's right to their purpose, which is to the complete destruction of all identity and of all purpose. And so it's like once you see that, it's really important for us to recapture those stories and to recapture the symbolism, because we're faced with things that often we've lost our weapons against. And so how do you deal with something that's presented to you imagistically, right? It's like the scene in the opening of the Olympics. It wasn't a political statement. It was presented imagistically in story terms with certain cultural elements. And so we try to answer politically, but when you do that, they just say, well, no, you're misunderstanding. And then they start to gaslight and to shift. What we need to learn to do, and that's why I don't talk about politics that much. I talk about stories and I try to tell stories, is because that's the best way to answer. The best way to answer, because the real stories, the true stories, the one that are embodied in fairy tales or the Bible or even the ancient myths, these stories that have been with us for millennia and that kind of uphold our civilization, if we can understand them and then present them again to the world in a way that is clear, then those stories win, because they're the true stories.
As social unrest escalates, as crime rates climb, securing your family and their safety more important than ever. I'm about as pro-Second Amendment as it gets. I have many, many guns. But the thought of using lethal force in my home, I'd love to have some other options, and that's why you need to check out Byrna. Introducing the Byrna Ungun, the non-lethal self-defense platform. Lightweight, simple to use. It uses an easy-to-load 5-round magazine. It's powered by an 8-gram CO2 cartridge. Byrna launchers fire a 68 caliber chemical-filled projectile using patented pull-pierce technology, where the CO2 canister is only punctured on the first trigger pull, which means your launcher is always at the ready. It's capable of incapacitating an attacker for over 30 minutes. It's accurate and effective at over 60 feet. Doesn't require a permit, no background checks. It's interstate travel friendly. With Byrna, you will be prepared to defend. The Byrna is a safer, more sensible alternative that could potentially save lives on both sides, protecting both user and aggressor. Thank you, Byrna, for sponsoring this video. If you haven't yet, go check out last week's episode of Ben After Dark on Daily Wire Plus, brought to you by Byrna. Again, check out our friends over at Byrna right now. And one of the things that you've been talking about lately is the symbolism of conspiracy theories. And this is really interesting, because obviously we now have a society that's rife with conspiracy theories. I was talking with someone the other day, and it's been a weird ride, because as somebody who really, really strongly does not believe in conspiracy theories, because I think it generally assumes a level of competence on the part of human beings that is nearly never present in human beings. But there obviously have been things that that elites in our society have done that, if done not intentionally, very much mimic conspiracy theories. They very much look like top-down, contain and control attempts to really take control of the levers of society. Obviously, the most obvious example being COVID. And I think that has now expanded itself, so that we're now in a world where that has been used as a tool by people who legitimately are full-time conspiracy theorists to basically say, you can't trust your own eyes, trust me, which is a really dangerous form of demagoguery, is to be wrong about 99 out of 100 conspiracies. You're right about one. And this is supposed to now legitimize the other 99 conspiracy theories that you hold. So if it turns out that the elites in the society were having sex parties in New York while locking down New York, then that also means the moon landing isn't real. And that also means that there's an elite cadre of people meeting at the synagogues on Friday night to determine the weather patterns, right? Like that, there's this willingness for human beings that once that flip is switched, once the switch is flipped, rather, that now you believe all the things, because you can't believe anything, so you may as well believe, the worst about every single thing. However, what do you make of the prevalence of conspiracy theories, and where do you bring symbolism into all this?
Well, the first thing to understand about conspiracy theories is that the first thing they represent to us is that we don't trust our leaders. We don't trust the elites. That's the first thing. And so you can take the most extreme version and you can understand it. The idea of the lizard people, I actually kind of like that one because it's quite coherent, right? That is, our leaders are lizard people, our elites are lizard people, and you think, okay, that's just insane, right? No, I mean, obviously I don't believe that they're genetically lizard people that are the elites, but if you just pull back one step and you look at the image, what it's revealing to you is that the elites have another allegiance. Their allegiance is to themselves. They have their own world that is one that is strange and foreign to me, that I don't understand. They have their own purposes that aren't related to helping us and to being what leaders should be, which is, shepherds helping the world in which they are. And they have their own intentions that are obscure and are snake-like. And that's why you come up with a conspiracy theory like that. And the thing is that true? Well, I think that is true, because it's not true out of a concentrated desire necessarily to make it happen. It's true because of the way in which because of technology, because of all kinds of things, the way our society sets itself up, which is that the elites have nothing to give to the people anymore, right? In an ancient Roman world, if you were an aristocrat, you had to build public buildings. You had to do public things. If you didn't, at some point, they're going to kill you. Like, they really are. They're just going to go to your house and get rid of you if you don't participate in the common good of society. But now we have these weird world of finance and like completely isolated elites that we don't even know who they are, but that they can act on us and they can have massive amounts of power without us knowing. So that's a good example. And conspiracy will also always have, conspiracy type thinking will always have similar patterns. It has to do with the lizard people. And I mean, it can help you understand it too. And that is to some extent why Jews are often targeted, because it has to do with the lizard people question. It has to do with the idea that as soon as I notice that things don't go right, it's as if my leaders or the people deciding for us have other allegiances.
Are you tired of the lies and the twist of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.